joined by Chelsea Torres, who was part of the Project Spurs alumni, former Spurs Project Spurs alumni, and is now currently a reporter for Chris TV in Corpus Christi. And she's also a diehard Spurs fan. So it's an honor to have you with us today, Chelsea.
No, Joe, it's an honor to even be here. Thank you so much for even asking me to join you today. I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, like always, I like to talk with other, Spurs fans, and of course, you're all the way now removed from San Antonio, and now
Yeah.
in Corpus Christi, but you're still a diehard, so that's amazing.
Yeah, I grew up, born and raised San Antonio, and so silver and black runs through my veins through and through and will always. That'll never change.
I was talking to you before we came in and started recording this episode, and I thought it was so hilarious. I was even talking with Michael DeLeon about it. I had reached out to you and asked, "Hey, it's Chelsea, would you like to be a guest on the Two Shots podcast?" And then, like shortly after, I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna watch the Tony Parker documentary." And so I turn it on, and it's not even like 5 minutes, I guess, into the documentary. And who do I see on TV? Chelsea Torres. I'm like, oh my God. How did that even happen, Chelsea?
Crazy, Joe, I don't know how these things happen. So the production company that created this documentary, they reached out to me and the station a few months back. I mean, sometime in 2019. I couldn't even tell you when, but it had to be sometime during the summer. And I saw, what they were asking. They wanted to use a news clip of mine. They wanted to use, we also have a sports guy named Jeff Dubroff, and they wanted to use some sports clips from him. And so I'm like, is this even legit? When you're in news and you have a news email, you get so many kinds of emails, just people reaching out about, hey, I'm a PR person for this and we want to do an interview about this. And, I didn't know if it was real. And I asked Jeff and he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, I'll just send it to our news director. I sent it to the news director and he was like, I'll handle it. And from then I forgot about it. And then Tuesday night, so the documentary aired on Wednesday. Tuesday night, I get a message on Facebook and it's from San Antonio film critic. And he's like, hey, did you know that you're in this new Tony Parker documentary? And I'm like, what? No. And he sent me a screenshot of what it looked like when he paused it. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I've been getting texts and people have asked me about it. And I'm like, yeah, it was a surprise. I didn't know, but it's
So
cool. A great surprise.
yeah, so now you're gonna be all over the place, not just here in the States, but internationally as well, because there's fans that are all over the world that are going to be watching this documentary. So your face and your reporting is going to be out there for everyone to see. And how cool is that,
It is wild. It's so cool. I think what's so cool about it is that, I'm a San Antonio person. I'm a San Antonio girl. So, they found a news segment, even though I'm in Corpus Christi, but I'm a San Antonio girl through and through. So I thought that was awesome that I get to represent, and it's Tony Parker. And it's just, it's a sad situation overall with what happened to him, but I feel honored, honestly. It's really just a cool opportunity that came to be.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to check out the documentary?
I did. I watched it that night because by then I already had a lot of people telling me like, "Hey, you're on here." And so I thought, well, maybe I'll eventually watch it. And then that night, my roommate found out about it and she was like, "We have to watch it." And I'm like, "Okay." So we watched it and that's when I was like, "Whoa, this is so cool." And shout out to Jeff too, because the first voice that you hear, it's a news voice and it's his voice. So you hear him, you don't ever see him in the documentary, but you hear him for the very first voice that you hear on the documentary. And then he's on a little bit later, maybe like 20 minutes before it actually ended, you hear his voice again. So I'm like, dang. And he's also from San Antonio.
Oh,
So it
wow.
was just cool that they chose two San Antonio people to represent. I love that.
That is amazing. But go ahead and share your first impressions, though, of the documentary. What did you think? Because it's basically showing I guess, what Tony Parker went through, at such a young age, and just his drive, determination, to want to succeed and, fulfill his dream of one day being in the NBA. And now that he went into the NBA, it's just like surpassed all his expectations, which was amazing to see him as a young child,
Mm-hmm.
and then come all the way full circle to where he is now. I mean, what did you think about this documentary as a whole?
Well, I thought the way that it was shot and edited was beautiful. It was just the actual over plot of the actual documentary was great, and I love that. And I'm a huge documentary fan. And at first, let me tell you this: before I even started watching it, I read up on it first because I thought, okay, I knew that they were obviously it's about Tony Parker, but is it going to be more so just about him being traded? Is it going to be everything all together? And so I saw an article that basically people were kind of comparing it to The Last Dance about Michael Jordan, and I watched all of that, and I think they compared it more so in the sense that, hey, this is a beautiful documentary that any NBA fan will love or any sports fan will love. So again, I was really excited just to see, okay, how is it edited? How is it shot? How did they portray his life? And from the very beginning, I loved all of the young home videos of him shooting and him going to practices all the time and hearing from his dad and his mom. To me, I love that kind of stuff. I'm a big family person. And so knowing that he is also and seeing kind of how he came up that way was really cool. And then they had so many different kinds of interviews from everybody. Kemba Walker. They had, of course, Michael Jordan in there, Tim Duncan, Pop, Manu. Of course, they're gonna have those, but they even had Kobe in there, and I thought that was so cool because it's just, it just goes to show the scope that Tony Parker had, his impact that he had on the game itself, in the NBA, and then of course you kind of track it back to the way that he was portrayed in France, and I thought that was cool because you always hear with Manu how he was portrayed in South America, but to see Tony and the fans and how much they loved him, I love that. It just kind of, again, I grew up San Antonio Spurs fan, and the big three, I mean, that's the legacy, the dynasty that we all know as Spurs fans. And so knowing when he left that day that I heard that he was going to be traded, and just knowing that the big three is over, well, it's cool to see now looking back that he had such a big fan base in France and that they still love him. And it's just like that here. So I'm glad that they did this documentary because I think it shed a lot of light on a lot of things that we didn't know.
Yeah, one of the things that we didn't know, I think, as fans, because we're not privy to what goes on behind the scenes with the Spurs
Mm-hmm.
inner circle, because that's the way it's always been. They keep all that information tight to the vest. So
Yes.
one of the things that was interesting is seeing the passing of the guard, or the flame, so to speak, from it being Tim Duncan's team to now it's Tony Parker's team, and how impactful that was when they did lose to the Miami Heat. That was Tony Parker's team. And then the next year, they came back and just dismantled the Miami Heat. That was Tony Parker's team. He was
I
the
love
leader.
that.
And
Mm-hmm.
to me, I didn't quite understand what was happening, at the time. You're just appreciating everything that's unfolding. But to hear that story, the past, the changing of the guard to where it's Tony's team, and this is what Tony was able to do, I was just amazed at that. I mean, it was such part of Spurs history that I think we take for granted at times. We didn't know how impactful Tony Parker was or how instrumental his leadership was to that 2014 championship.
Oh, no, I completely agree with that because I thought that was so cool to hear that. You see the shot of him talking to Pop in the hallway, and that's when Tony comes out and says, yeah, I talked to Pop, and he basically said it's time for me to take over and lead the torch and have the torch and pass it on and keep going. And man, what a cool thing to know about Tony Parker and Pop, and just to know about how that cohesiveness kind of came within the team. And I mean, we all remember that 2013 season and that last game against the Heat with Ray Allen. It's something that I try to forget, and I know I will never forget. um, but I think what's cool also is, I got to be working for News 4. We were in the parking lot of that final game at the AT&T Center in 2014 when they won. And man, it's that energy. It's just he said it perfectly in the documentary that San Antonio and the Spurs, that's what they have. That's what San Antonio has, and that's what they care about. And so it was nice to see that the torch was able to be passed down to Tony.
Yeah, another thing that I like seeing was the private party that Tony had after his
Yeah.
retirement ceremony, and then it says, "This is Tony Parker's. We're at Tony Parker's private retirement party that he had," and you get to see like all the family, his friends, even NBA, players that were there. One of them being the great David Robinson,
Yes.
and he's just kind of letting loose, talking with Tony, and you see Tony there, with his family and his friends, and it's good to see that kind of camaraderie where they're not so have to be so professional in front of the lens, in front of the media, talking to the reporters and whatnot. It's just them being them. This is how they are when they're not in front of the camera. To me, that was very special to witness, because we don't get to see any of that.
We never do. I think that's always my favorite part. Maybe that's why I love documentaries, because you really get to see the behind the scenes. You get to see how people are just away from everything, relaxed and having fun. And I mean, they're a family, so it's cool to see how they interact with each other. And I mean, I think another thing that I took away from this documentary is Tony Parker has a nice house. Like,
He does.
what? I mean, he had a slide with like it was beautiful. And I honestly didn't even know he still lived in San Antonio.
Yeah.
I thought he was back in France. And so
France.
when I saw his house, and I thought, wow, oh man, he's doing just fine for himself.
It's like he had his own private water park. It's like a
Yes.
big old cement mountain with slides and everything. I'm like, what is this?
I'll be adopted. I mean, what? How beautiful. I'd live there in a heartbeat.
And then you see the room that he has. He has like a thumb pad that he has to put his thumb on, and it
Oh,
opens the trophy room, and you go in there and you're like, oh man, this is nice.
I missed the thumb pad part, but the trophy room was beautiful. I mean, it's just like, it's everything you would think a millionaire NBA player's house would look like.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful. I love the whole documentary. I thought it was, really well done from start to finish. Shows the complete gamut of Tony Parker's career. Even the injury that he sustained in 2017, came back from that, played another season with the Spurs, then went on to finish his career with the Charlotte Hornets. But one of the things that it really shed light on is just how impactful Tony Parker was to the game of basketball, not only here in the States, but also what it meant when he would win
Mm-hmm.
to the people back home in France. He is one of the most decorated Frenchmen to ever play basketball in the NBA. And you don't understand the impact that has until you really watch the documentary. And he just means so much to these kids that are growing up that are idolizing him. And they're saying, instead of, I want to be like Michael Jordan, I want to be like Tony Parker. And
Yeah.
how he goes back to those, and he has a camp, and he has this school, and he kind of is imparting his knowledge and what he went through and what he can do kind of for the next generation of NBA fans, or NBA players. That's amazing.
It's so amazing, and it's so cool that we got to have him here for so long. And there's a whole other world in France where people are just watching his every move and looking up to him in that limelight. That is beautiful. And I think also, which I knew this, I knew that he had his own team, women's and men's, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he has his academy there, and all of that. But to see him as a businessman too, and knowing that he did do that while he was still playing, I mean, to me, that speaks volumes of just the kind of person he is, the character, the hard work that he shows. And I think, I don't remember who it was in the documentary that mentioned it, but it reminded me of Michael Jordan in The Last Dance, when they made the comment, Tony Parker, he'll get up at 5 a.m. to watch the games.
Yeah.
And, he's studying every move and he's studying everything. To me, that shows his work ethic. And not only did it show it on the court, but it shows it off the court as well. And that was, again, a behind the scenes kind of aspect that I love.
Yeah, I loved all of it, and I just thought it was really well done. And if you're watching this or you're listening to this podcast and you have not gone to see the Tony Parker documentary that is now available on Netflix, go and check it out. You won't be disappointed. There's a lot of nostalgia there and a lot of things you didn't know about Tony
Support as
Parker that
well.
come to light
And
here,
that was,
but it's in a
again,
good
behind
way.
the
You know,
scenes kind
it
of
shows
aspect that I
everything that
love.
happened with him.
Yeah, I
And
loved
even
all of
one of
it,
the
you
things
know,
that I
and I
like
just
that I
thought it.
thought was kind of touching is how he started off with Boris Diaw, and they
Mm-hmm.
show them as kids and they're just like, kind of dreaming. Tony's walking around showing off his binder. These are my dreams. This is what I want to be. And they never thought that they would come full circle and become NBA champions, and not let alone do it together, And to me, that was like, wow, this is your buddy, and this
Mm-hmm.
kids having fun. One day we're going to be in the NBA. One day we're going to be champions. And they were, So how special is that for them,
Isn't that wild to like
Yeah.
think back, like, for anybody, man, if I had, I've known this one guy my entire life and we played ball together growing up, and now look at us, we're in college. Oh, now look at us, we're in the NBA, like in America, chasing our dreams and then winning championships. I mean, it really doesn't get much better than that. And I love seeing that kind of relationship between Boris and Tony. And I already knew that when Boris came to the Spurs, but well, I didn't know everything, right? I didn't know the full scope, but I knew that they'd known each other. And then seeing them play with each other, and then going through all the obstacles and then winning that championship, that's just something that no one can take from you. And I'm glad we got to witness that as fans.
Yeah, be honest with me, because I'm going to be
Mhm.
honest with you.
Yeah.
I got teared up. I got
Did
me
you?
choked up in the end, especially because I'm a father, right? So I
Mhm.
know what it means when you're so proud of your children and what they accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And you see his father there, where they're giving him the medal, and he's talking, and he's just, saying thank you. I appreciate everything you did to me. And his dad is this really proper guy, dressed, always dressed to the T's. It's
Mm-hmm.
like Mr. Parker knows how to dress. I like
Oh
his
yeah, he
style,
does.
It's like, damn. And he's there standing, and he's listening to his son. And as soon as his son says that to him, he's trying to hold back tears. And then Tony has to take a break. He has to pause. He needs a moment because he's trying not to break down in front of everybody. He can't look at his family in the eye when he's talking because he knows he's going to lose it at any minute. And then even listening to his mom, because I'm a mama's boy. I was raised by a single mom. And when his mama starts talking about him, oh man, forget it. And she's starting to tear up, and she's talking so, so dearly about her son and what he's done. And she's like, I'm proud of him. I was like, oh, that got me there. It's like, that would make me cry, for real. So did you shed a tear when you saw all these things?
I did not shed physical tears, Joe, but I'll tell you this. I again, like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm a family person, and I talk to my parents every single day, and they mean everything to me. They've supported me and sacrificed so I could chase after my dreams and do what I wanted to do. So knowing that he got to experience that with his parents, and his parents did the same for him, and just, I think they said at the beginning that, I don't remember details exactly, but didn't his dad like have him basically going to practice like every single day, and they're practicing constantly, and that just shows a lot. Again, building that character of work ethic, I think, is very important. But it obviously, I mean, he executed that, and so his parents were able to see that. And I think you're right, as a parent, that's so amazing to see your child just strive for something, work so hard, and eventually get there. So I
Yeah.
love seeing that emotion.
Yeah, to me that was very special. We get to see Tony Parker as a son,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to see his parents and what they went through so he could chase his dream, like you said, and then just be so proud of him. And then to be there to witness him having his jersey,
Oh yeah.
raised to the rafters, it's like I would have been there in the crowd. Wow.
I know. If I was there, I would definitely be crying for sure.
Yeah. It was just so great. I love the documentary, so what would you give it if you have to rate it out of 5 stars, Chelsea?
Out of 5? Honestly, I would say 5, but that's me being very biased. And that's only being biased as a Spurs fan, not at all because you see my face in it, but as a Spurs fan, because what's funny is my roommate, she's a Rockets fan, and she actually worked for the Rockets for a little while. And so she even said to me, like, what? Why would they do a documentary about Tony Parker? And I'm like, of all players, and I think a lot of people that are NBA fans that are from America might think the same thing. Like, really, Tony Parker? Why would Netflix make a documentary of them? But it's not like Netflix was the one who necessarily asked for this, I guess. I don't know how that works, but I know it was the French production company. And that just goes to show on the other side of the water, I mean, his kind of celebrity status is different than it is here.
Yeah.
And so I think that also helps push the documentary to 5 stars, in my opinion, because it's like he's not just, a big guy here in Texas, but across the world.
Yes.
And editing and all of that, I like to look at that stuff because that's what I do. And so to me, I thought all of that was perfectly done. So I would give it 5 stars.
Yeah, I'll probably give it 5 stars as well because the editing was beautifully done. Even the cinematography,
Mm-hmm.
they did an amazing job. It just looked so good from start to finish. And I'm with you. I do a lot of my own editing and all that kind of stuff, and it's a labor of love. People
Uh-huh.
don't see all the hours you spend behind the computer trying
Mm-hmm.
to edit. Even an hour show takes so long. 30 minutes takes so long. I mean, it really is a labor of love, you know?
It is. You got it. You really have to enjoy it and love what you do to sit there and stare at a computer for a long period of time. And then you get so creative with it and you want it to be perfect, and it's a lot of work. It's a grind.
Yeah, it is, but it's worth it. It's fun. So we're
Yes.
both giving the documentary 5 stars. So there you have it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's well worth your time. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about the San Antonio Spurs, which
All
is
right.
why we're here. So over the course of the last couple of games, we've had the San Antonio Spurs go up against the Utah Jazz, which they got beat handedly. You
They
know, the
did.
Jazz really just diced them up, had their way with them, and they just shot lights out from beyond the arc. The Spurs lost this game 130 to 109.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very hard lesson for a lot of these younger players who now part of the Spurs team to go through. You know, you need adversity, and I think at times and during this game, you could see that the inexperience was rearing its ugly head. You know, and that's okay. I was fine with the loss. It was an ugly loss, yes. You know, the Spurs just couldn't get out there and really do anything
Just
to
more of what the Spurs
guard the
need. So
three
I think if they
effectively.
can.
There was no perimeter defense. The
Mhm.
Jazz just had their way with them. The Spurs had issues because the Jazz just moved the ball so well during that game. The ball movement was chef's kiss. You know, it's
Yes.
just like it's beautiful to watch. You know, and the Spurs just didn't have an answer for it. But the silver lining that I took from this, it's a learning experience, and that's one of the things that I think goes unnoticed a lot by Spurs fans. Is I told them coming into this season, is going to be a season of learning. It's going to
Yeah.
be a season of growth. It's not so much the emphasis is on making the playoffs. Coach Pop kind of said that in the beginning before the season started. Really, it's a season of growth. It's a season to watch these younger players get the experience that they need to help this team get better and eventually make a run into the playoffs. If they were to make the playoffs this season, it would just be a byproduct of them coming together and learning out there and really showing full circle how they came in kind of inexperienced and learning as the season went on. So, given this game against the Jazz where they lost 130 to 109, I was like, okay, I'll take a win or a loss, Chelsea, as long as the effort is there. And it really wasn't there
It
against
wasn't.
the Jazz. But then they come and they play the Clippers, and
Mm-hmm.
everyone left them for dead. There's no way that they're going to beat the Clippers. And lo and behold, the basketball gods do us a solid. And Paul George isn't available. It's just the dreaded number two, Kawhi Leonard,
Yep.
you know? And the Spurs go up by 20 plus points. And Spurs fans are like, oh my God, look at this team. I love this. I love this team. I love them. You know, they're pushing the pace. They're running. They look so good in the open court. Everybody's playing so well. Look at FIBA Patty, 20 plus points, just draining threes all over the place. Third quarter comes around.
It's always the third quarter.
Always the third quarter with the Spurs. It's our Achilles heel. They they just all the lead all but evaporates. But somehow, some way, they find the stops they need near the end of the game when it mattered to come out with the win. And the same thing happened with the Lakers. They get this lead, and of course, it's the Lakers. We know they're going to make a run sooner or later, and eventually they made a run. And that happened again in the third quarter. I'm like,
Yep.
again, Chelsea, third quarters. But again, the Spurs found stops when they needed to come out with the win, and they defeat the Lakers 118 to 109. Over the course of these three games, it's kind of like we've gone through the full gamut of emotion. You
Yes.
know,
It's been
the
a roller
lows,
coaster of emotions.
yes, the lows and the highs.
Hmm.
What can you take away from these three games, and really tell Spurs fans what is it that really stood out to you during these three games, and especially during this 2 game winning streak?
Okay, well, it was nice to break the snap of the losing streak to get these few wins, and then we've been winning ever since. So you almost start thinking at the beginning of the season, again, it's still early, but you're like, dang, is this going to be another one of last year? We don't need that. At least now with these last couple of wins, last few wins, it's looking promising. Like, oh, this is how when they're playing well and everybody's cohesive, things look good. This is how we should be playing. I think we've noticed with the NBA over the past few years, it's becoming more of a deep shooting game. All right, we've seen that in big guys. So I think it helps that right now, we have Keldon Johnson, who they call big body. That's what we need. More guys like him, on the court that are big bodied. DeJounte Murray also has had a couple of good games. It was nice to see Patty shooting from three and really making those shots. That's just more of what the Spurs need. So I think if they can be consistent, and I think that's always the downfall, is that they can't be consistent, at least past couple of seasons. And so far this season we've seen that, is that they haven't been consistent. But when they're able to drop those threes from deep, and when they're able to really play good defense and rattle like the Lakers, defending champs with LeBron. That's what we need to be doing. Or should I say we? I don't know. But that's what the Spurs should be doing moving forward, to especially, moving forward to, what is it, tomorrow night with the Timberwolves. And
Yeah, on a back to back Saturday
yeah.
and Sunday.
And Timberwolves are 2-6. So it's like, it would make sense for the Spurs not to lose. They should win these next 2 games. But I feel like in typical Spurs fashion, it might come out to 1 win, 1 loss. But I'm hoping not. I'm thinking realistically. Is
You
that bad?
you're thinking like, no, you're thinking like me, and this is the thing, because I have to do this predictability thing, right? Because I'm part of this website called Tally Site, and Tally
Hmm.
Site is, they have all these esteemed people of the press that come in and give their predictions for upcoming games. You
Hmm.
got people from ESPN, Fox Sports Southwest, FS1, all from all over the nation. And everybody goes in here and really says, okay, this is what we think is going to happen for these upcoming games. And they have me labeled there as a Spurs insider for this information. So I had to give my take early this morning. So I go in there and I'm like, I predict that the Spurs are going to win
Hmm.
this game on Saturday, but I'm just like you. I think they're going to wind up splitting. They're going to go 1-1, because if we go by history in typical Spurs fashion, they can, look great against the Lakers, against the Clippers, and then they just come in against subpar 500 teams and they just get blown out the water because
Yeah.
of inconsistency. So I think the first game, they're still going to have some of that magic. They're going to be off of that 2 game high, and they're going to find a way to win. I think the game might be a little bit closer than most people would like. I
Hmm.
predict the score was going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 123 to 110, but they're going to wind up getting a win. However, on Sunday, I don't know what's going to happen on that game, because you got to face it. They're coming in playing these games, right? And they're late games. Fatigue has to set in at some point in time.
Yes.
And, let's see what happens against this first game against the Timberwolves. If they lead the entire game, great. If they have to come from behind to win, that tells you all you need to know. The amount of energy that they can expunge to come back into the game, both from a defensive perspective and an offensive perspective, will show up in the second game of a back-to-back. And that's exactly what I think will happen. That's why I'm predicting that split. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm a realist just like you.
And that's what I've learned that over the years, before back. So when I was doing Project Spurs, that was 2015, I think. And a lot of new guys coming in. It was obviously after the Spurs had won their 2014 championship. And so, you're just, as a fan, you're on a high all the time and you love that. But the past couple of years, you've kind of just been like, okay, like what you said earlier, this season is more of a learning season. And that's what we're learning. We have a lot of young guys that seem to know the game very well and have that high basketball IQ that Pop looks for. And it's just a matter of making sure that they can mesh well with Spurs basketball. And right now they're playing a lot of small ball, which it seems to be working out well. It seemed to work out well in the bubble in
And an
Orlando. So let's
offensive
hope that
perspective
they
will
can
show.
continue with a good consistency moving forward.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you something too,
Mm-hmm.
because you've watched a handful of games this season, and
Mm-hmm.
what all the buzz is about on social media and whatnot. What player in particular from this team, from the San Antonio Spurs, has really surprised you this year?
I think there's two players, and I'll go with my first one, which is David Vassell, rookie. And I think what I like about him, Devin Vassell, I think what I
Mhm.
like about him so much is that he kind of embodies that perfect, almost perfect NBA player that we're looking for right now. He can shoot those threes, a consistent deep shooter, again, because we've seen in the NBA that's almost what it seems like more of winning basketball happens deep. And then, of course, just making good defensive plays. So I like that about him. Now, is that a surprise as a first round pick coming from Florida State? Maybe not as a huge surprise, but I like that the way Pop has been utilizing him. My other player would, and this isn't really probably a big surprise to many Spurs fans, but Patty Mills. He's just kind of had some pretty good. He had that great breakout game against the Clippers. Not only that, but I feel like, do I want to say that he's been necessarily consistent the past few years? Maybe not, but I liked seeing all of the off-season work that he was doing. I followed him a lot on social media this past couple years, and so for me, I just like seeing that. So as a player, that probably surprised me the most.
Okay. Well, I like your picks. I think Patty has been playing, even like he stated before the season started, he was going to be playing FIBA Patty style. And he
Yes.
has been.
Mm-hmm.
He's been amazing to watch when he comes in and with that second unit and he kind of picks up the point guard position and the energy that he plays with, his ability to knock down perimeter jumpers, knock down threes, being aggressive, kind of drawing the team's defense into the interior and then kind of kicking out to whoever else is open, dishing out to, maybe somebody cutting to the basket without the ball, of course. And you just love all that energy that he's putting forth from an offensive perspective. And then on the defensive end, he's been quite good as well. He
Mm-hmm.
even drew a charge against the king himself, LeBron James,
Yeah.
in that fourth quarter. I was like, Patty Mills, you
That's what we
know?
need, though. It's the aggression and the hustle. I feel like that's what's going to get you those wins. You have to hustle for everything, and I love seeing that in Patty. He's hungry for it, and I love that about
Yeah, I've loved it too. I've loved every minute of seeing FIBA Patty out there
him.
on full display for everybody. But I'm going to tell you my pick
Okay.
of a Spurs player who actually stood out to me this season was somebody who Spurs fans kind of left for dead. They had zero expectations. They were ready to trade him. Let's get rid of him. And that's not LaMarcus Aldridge. That is one DeJounte Murray.
Ah.
DeJounte Murray has been making a lot of these Spurs fans eat crow, and they gave him a lot of flack because he had one bad game, this far early in the season. It's okay that happens in the gamut of playing a regular NBA season. We have a shortened season by 10 games, which is 72 games this coming season. But you like what you're seeing out there from one DeJounte Murray. He's making better decisions with the ball. He's playing stellar defense. He's rebounding the ball really well. You love the aggression. You love the fact that he's able to shoot threes and just his decision making overall has gotten better. You would have thought that the Spurs would have been in a worse position than they actually are because we don't have Derek White. And historically, when you go back into the last, I guess, two seasons, you're looking at the comparison between Derek White and DeJounte, and it was pretty evident to Spurs fans that Derek White was the better of the two as far as a point guard, being able to distribute the ball, making better decisions. Right now, DeJounte is coming into his own, and I love that because that only means that when we do get Derek back, this team's going to have one hell of a backcourt, and both Derek and DeJounte on the court. Then you have Keldon out there. I'm
Yes.
going to be like that guy, from years ago. No, hombre, shut up. It's like, come on,
But it's true though.
Yeah.
When you have these young guys, that's exactly like you said, it's a learning season. And so we just need to build these guys up, keep having them do what they're doing, learning and figuring out the best way to handle the ball on the court. And I anticipate, if not next year, the year after, given, that we keep a lot of these key players and they're doing what they're doing under Pop, we could have some stellar seasons in the coming years.
Yeah. So that was my pick. You gave us
I
your
like
pick.
it.
Yeah. So prediction before we go ahead and start bringing this to a close. What do you think the Spurs are going to do this season? Do you think that they're going to go ahead and make a run and they're going to wind up making the playoffs by being a legitimate seventh or eighth seed? Or do you think that the Spurs are going to have to play to get into the tourney? Meaning that they might be hovering around that 10th, ninth seed where they have to actually win to get in,
To get in, yeah. I'm going to say I think I'll be fairly realistic as much as I like the past few wins. And again, it's early, but I think this is a good time to make these predictions. I want to say they're probably going to have to fight a little bit. And I only say that because, again, when you're talking about the way that the team looks on paper, or even just looking at them, big-bodied guys, deep shooting. And I feel like that's going to be the key components. Those are going to be the X factors moving into at least the Western Conference playoffs. So I'm going to say they're going to have to fight a little bit.
Okay, I like your prediction because you're kind of right around the mindset that I'm thinking. While they're going to look good and they're going to be competitive, I think they're going to be more competitive than they were in the prior season, just because the inflection of youth that they have inserted into this, starting lineup and coming off the bench with the mixture of veterans. I think it's a really good balance on both the starting five and the bench players. So I think they can be competitive, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of inexperience there. And I said, this is a season of growth. If they do make the playoffs, that's just a byproduct. I think the focus is on growth and development this season. So again, I think they're probably going to be hovering right around that ninth, maybe 10th, where they have to play to get in. It is what it is. Hopefully they can win, and we'll be treated to something special this season, a little taste of what's to come, So I hope they're able to make the playoffs. And wouldn't they look good, though, making the playoffs in their
Heck
Fiesta
yeah, they would.
jersey?
Joe, a perfect world, they'd be 2021 champs.
Yeah.
So, man, I would love to see that, especially with those Fiesta jerseys. The people finally got what they've been asking for all this time. So it would be nice if those jerseys can make its playoffs.
I know I would be wearing my Fiesta jersey.
Yeah.
And especially would mean so much more if the Spurs were in the playoffs. We had Fiesta and we get to wear a Fiesta jersey. I just need my chicken on my stick. That's it.
Yes, that sounds so good. All of that sounds perfect.
Yeah.
I hope that happens.
I do too, because you know all too well, Fiesta in San Antonio, one of the things is you better wear the stretchy pants because when you go out, you smell the food right away. So you're gonna pack on the pounds.
Absolutely. I get me my funnel cakes, chicken on a stick. I like going to Oyster Bake so I can get some of that Cajun food. I like to do it all. And I was just talking to somebody from here that used to live in San Antonio, and I was like, it's what I miss is Fiesta. Like, you take off the whole week. That's your vacation, for that time frame. And what do? You just go to every Fiesta event and go all over town. I mean, that's what you do. And I miss that so much.
I do too. One of my favorite things is Nyosa and the beignets. I love the beignets at Nyosa.
I've never had the beignets, Joe.
They're so good. They're so good. They get you in trouble because they're so light and then they put the powdered sugar on there, and you're already drinking a beer, or you got an alcoholic beverage in your hand, and you're talking with your friends, and before you know it, you're like, "What happened to my beignets?" Well, you ate them all.
They're
You
all
know, you got to
gone.
go get more.
That's true. Hey, I don't mind that at all. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
try those though. I haven't tried the beignets yet.
Yeah, try them. They're right when you walk in. They have like a little area, and it's right off to the right side. It used to be, and they used to sell the beignets right there. It's a really small stand. You'll if you blink, you'll miss it, but it's
Okay.
right there. It's so good.
I
I'm
usually
telling you.
scan everything, so I'll make sure I do that next
Yeah.
time.
So before we go ahead and bring this to an end, where can the people find you? You know, on social media, and more importantly, where can they find your stellar news reporting over at Chris TV?
Yeah, so you can go to christv.com, or if you're in the Coastal Bend area, or even if you have the Chris 6 app, I do anchor Saturday and Sunday mornings and from 6 to 7 a.m. So I'm sure you're probably sleeping, but if you happen to be up, you can watch during that time. Social media, I'm on Instagram. I'm on, what is my Instagram? I think my Instagram is just Yes, I'm Chelsea. So it's very simple. And my Twitter is Chelsea Torres TV, I think. And I'm on Facebook as well. You can just literally type in Chelsea Torres and you should see my face eventually pop up. So, however, I will warn you, if you try to Google Chelsea Torres, you will find Fernando Torres from the Chelsea soccer team, pages and pages and pages of him. So you'll have to kind of search if you're actually looking for me on Google.
Yeah. So make sure you go and follow Chelsea on social
Please.
media, especially on Twitter, because she likes Spurs. So maybe you can kind
Mm-hmm.
of fill her in on what's happening. Maybe when she's busy on doing her reporting, she can't follow. So maybe somebody update her and let her know what's happening.
I would love that. That'd be so nice. That's what I need. I need somebody to constantly update me so I can at least keep up.
Yep, there you go. So you can also follow me, at Two Shots Podcast, and it's two TWO, not the number two, but TWO Two Shots Podcast. And I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also on YouTube. And I also do a little show that we just started too with the former voice, the PA announcer of the San Antonio Spurs, one Jonathan Sanford, and our good friend Ty Yeager, and our other good friend Jonas Clark. We do a show called At the Line, and it's happening every time after any Spurs games. So make sure you go ahead and check us out as we live stream on Twitch, on YouTube, and on Facebook. So we'd be happy to talk anything and everything that's related to the world of the San Antonio Spurs with you, especially getting those reactions after the games. That's amazing to have the fans call in and so we can talk with them. So for Chelsea Torres, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you for listening and watching another episode of the Two Shots Podcast. And like we always say, spread the love, stop the hate, be kind,